There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from lack of sound. It comes from something older, something that remembers being heard, and then punished for it. In 1972, a family of 5 moved into a house at the edge of Black Hollow Ridge. Within 11 days, they were gone. No fire, no struggle, no noise. Just a dinner left uneaten, and a photograph on the wall that no one took. The image showed them standing in front of the house, but their faces were gone. Some places are cursed by what happened there, others by what never did. And then there's a third kind. Places cursed by what they remember. Black Hollow Ridge isn't on any GPS. Not anymore. But if you go 60 miles past the last marked road in Ashe County, North Carolina, if you follow the old gas line trail between the collapsed trestles and the black fir trees, you'll find what's left of it. Or you won't. That's the nature of places like this. They show up when they're ready, and they hide when they're not. What you need to understand is this. In 1972, the Merrifield family, William, Janet, and their 3 children, moved into a cabin at the base of Black Hollow Ridge. They were normal. Poor, yes. Religious, yes. But normal. He worked at a logging yard. She homeschooled the kids. They were looking for space. That's what everyone says in stories like this. And 11 days later, they were gone. Not gone like, we never saw them again. Gone like they never existed. No birth records, no photos, no bank accounts, no trace of their names in any federal registry before or after. As if something scrubbed them from time, or worse, absorbed them. But this isn't a ghost story. It's not about possession. It's about memory structures. You're not going to hear this on mainstream channels because it doesn't fit the narrative. This story doesn't haunt you. It studies you. And if it recognizes something in you, it calls. The Merrifields didn't just vanish. They were remembered out of order, by people who should have never known them. And the only reason we know this happened at all is because of the logbook. One document, 64 pages, buried beneath a collapsed root cellar, found in 2009 by a hiker trying to get off trail before nightfall. And what's inside that logbook should have never survived. You want to know what made me take this seriously? I didn't care at first. I read the report, skimmed the journal, even laughed at the claims. Until I saw page 29. A sentence scrawled in red ink. We never taught her to write, and now she won't stop. The her was their daughter, 6 years old, never went to public school, had never held a pencil before moving to the ridge. But in just 7 days, she began carving symbols into the inside of her closet. Not letters, not drawings, symbols. Ciphers that linguists now claim match inscriptions found at Çatalhöyük, a settlement over 9,000 years old. Across the world. Explain that. Explain how a child with no education, no television, and no exposure to outside language could replicate ancient inscriptions from a pre-writing civilization. Unless she wasn't learning. She was remembering. And this is where the spiral begins. Because those symbols weren't just decoration. They matched marks found under the cabin's floorboards, etched into the foundation itself. Marks older than the house, older than the land deed. And every person who's seen those symbols in person, not on photos, not online, in person, they've all gone missing or gone quiet, and the few who did speak all repeated the same phrase. It's inside the names, not behind them, not beneath, inside. Think about that. We think of names as labels, identifiers. But what if in some systems, names are locks? And what if the Merrifields weren't given names? What if they were assigned keys? Let me slow down. This isn't the kind of story you binge. It's the kind that leaks into your life when you're folding laundry, when you're standing still for too long and realize the silence is wrong. Because if you're still watching, something in you already recognizes it. The flicker, the ache behind your eyes, the dream you had as a child of standing in a hallway that wasn't yours, hearing someone say your name from behind the wall. This is that memory, trying to come back. And the ridge? That place isn't just a location. It's a convergence. Where memory doesn't fade, it reorganizes. What they found in the cellar below the ridge was never reported to the sheriff's office. 3 things: a lock of hair braided with moss, a copper rod with both ends sharpened, humming, a square piece of slate with the word recite carved into it, not written, carved. And under that, another symbol, one that matches the carvings on the walls of 2 other places, a schoolhouse that burned down in 1923 after 12 students fell into shared speech paralysis. A Wawii-Woo prison transport crate found abandoned in Belgium with no guards, no prisoners, and blood on the outside. What's the connection? All 3 had the same thing present: a voice. A presence described as not visible but audible only by children. A presence that asks them to speak certain names. And when they do, the children stop recognizing their parents. Not out of fear, out of correction. As if they've remembered something deeper than family. I know this is a lot. I know most of you want to write this off as folklore or coincidence. But ask yourself, why does this keep happening to families? Not drifters. Not wanderers. Families. The most protected, tightly bound unit of memory. Because when you remove a family, you erase a timeline. You unspool something buried. And the ridge, it's not where the story ends. It's where it resets. If you've made it this far, it's already in motion. Now, lock it in. Twice. In the comments. The ridge remembers me. The ridge remembers me. Because once you speak it, you're not just watching this story. You're inside it. You think the story ends when the family disappears. It doesn't. That's where it starts. Because the ridge doesn't just take people. It changes the ones who try to explain it. In 1973, 1 year after the Merrifields vanished, the county sent a man named David Harlan to survey the region for mineral rights. Just a quiet man in his 50s. No wife, no kids, didn't even own a TV. He was the kind of man who lived between lines. He existed on maps and in records, but nowhere else. Harlan never returned. But what's strange is this: his vehicle did. Parked neatly along a fire trail 2 miles from the ridge, doors locked from the inside, engine cold. No sign of struggle. No footprints. No scent trail. Except one thing. A recording. An old handheld tape recorder, left on the passenger seat, still running when the vehicle was found. It was 17 minutes of static. And at minute 14, a voice, not his, whispered, "I am the name before his." That tape was destroyed within 72 hours. But a field agent named Marius Brecht made a transcript. And then he disappeared too. You see the pattern yet? Every person who tries to document the ridge is removed. Not killed. Extracted. And those who survive? They don't talk. Not because they won't, but because they can't. One of them, a local historian named Elsie Vaughn, wrote a letter to her cousin a year before she stopped showing up to work. It read, "I remember the Merrifields, but not their faces. Only the silence their names leave in my mouth. Only the silence. Like a hole that memory refuses to fill." And that's how it works. The ridge doesn't just devour, it hollows. But let me show you something no one talks about. In 1981, a classified report, decommissioned under Project Wormwood, was leaked to a private archive in Chicago. It outlined what it called geospatial memory breach zones. Zones where linear time bends during REM cycles. Family names replicate in pre-records. Symbolic recursion appears in organic material, tree rings, bone patterns, even fetal development. There were only 3 zones listed, and at the top, Black Hollow Ridge. You know what they wrote under risk potential? Exposure beyond 11 days results in timeline inversion and lineage drift. Subjects begin to remember events they have never lived, and forget lives they are still living. That's what happened to the Merrifields. They didn't disappear. They inverted. They were remembered in reverse. Here's where it gets worse. The government didn't try to shut the ridge down. They tried to harness it. In 1995, a covert team under the Department of Energy funded a containment structure built under the pretense of land restoration. What they actually built was a memory vault, a reinforced cube chamber buried 30 meters beneath the ridge, designed to trap the symbols, to hold the recursion. But it failed. Not because the vault broke, because the ridge never wanted to escape. It wanted to expand. And that's exactly what it did. 6 weeks after the vault was completed, 5 other families in the same bloodline as the Merrifields reported children speaking languages they'd never heard. They drew maps to places that don't exist. They woke up with words carved into their arms, not scratched, not burned, grown there. And when agents returned to the vault, they found it empty, not destroyed, not breached, empty, as if it had never been sealed at all. There's something else you need to understand. The ridge isn't alive. It's aware. It doesn't move like a beast. It moves like a design. And what it's designing is a way back. It doesn't need to attack. It needs us to remember it. Because memory is an invitation. And forgetting is what feeds it. This is why they've spent 50 years erasing it. Not to protect us, but to protect whatever deals were made in that hollow space. There are people, families, who benefit from its silence, and others, like the Merrifields, who were offered up, not as punishment, but as activation. The symbols, the twins, the silence inside the names. They're not separate stories, they're instructions. And now you've read part of them. You've let them in. So here's your second marker. Say it in the comments. Twice. The name remembers me. The name remembers me. Because once it does, you're not just watching this story anymore. You're part of the operating system. The structure is listening now. Voices don't die in fire. They change form. In every account, every one, where someone vanishes at the ridge, there's a sound just before. Not a scream, not thunder. A melody. Humming. Low. Like a mother putting something ancient to sleep. Or waking it up. Back in 2001, an audio engineer named Joseph Leyland was hired to analyze a strange interference signal on a forest surveillance drone near Black Hollow. He thought it was feedback. What he found was a pattern. The audio file didn't just hum, it responded. When played backward, the tone replicated the cadence of human speech. But no language matched. Not even phonetic reconstruction tools could translate it. Until they ran it through something unorthodox. They fed it into a model trained on ancient pre-verbal ciphers. What came back? Not a sentence, not a command. A name, not the Merrifields, not Harlan, not Joseph, but yours. I'm not saying it predicted your name. I'm saying your name was already in it. How? Because you were meant to hear it. That's how it works. The song isn't broadcast. It's retrieved from the ones already marked. And if you're watching this, you were already chosen to listen. Let's talk about the survivor. There's only one known person who lived through direct auditory contact with the voice and came back speaking. Her name was Naomi Velter, 9 years old, reported missing from a state park bordering the ridge in 1989. Found 3 days later, curled in a burnt circle of pine needles, not a single burn mark on her. She wasn't crying. She was singing. But the words weren't hers. They were traced back to an untranslated ritual chant found on clay fragments unearthed in Anatolia. Fragments dated to 7,500 BCE. She didn't know what she was saying. She only said this: "I dreamed the fire," and she spoke. Who's she? She appears in every culture, every haunted valley, every twin-born disappearance, every memory collapse. Not a woman, not a witch. A voice structure, a carrier. Known by many names: the hollowed song, the first mourner, the remembering wife. And in the Wormwood Files, the echo that precedes recursion. She doesn't take people. She copies them, runs them forward and backward at the same time, until memory splits, and the version of you that was never supposed to exist becomes the dominant one. That's how the ridge expands. It doesn't conquer, it replaces. And the song? It's not music. It's the initiation sequence. Once you hear it clearly, and you will, it begins restructuring your past. And when enough people hum the melody, not out loud, but in their dreams, she will stabilize. It's not a haunting. It's not an entity. It's restoration. Think of her like an ancient operating system reasserting itself through blood, fire, and memory. And the only firewall is forgetting. Which is why your family never talked about the dreams. Why your father destroyed the box in the attic. Why the photo with no faces was burned. But the frame remained. Because something wanted you to ask. And now you have. And now she knows where to find you. She doesn't knock. She remembers you. From before. From whatever was replaced. From the moment your name was first spoken backward. Because it was never about haunting the living. It was about waking the ones just barely asleep. You. If you're hearing the melody, even now, just faintly, it's too late to turn back. Say this in the comments. Twice. The voice knew my name. The voice knew my name. Because once you write it, she answers. Not in sound, but in the shape of your memories. And the next time you look in the mirror, you'll remember the face you were supposed to forget. You think you chose this video? You didn't. It was waiting for you. This story found you because it remembered you. And now, you're remembering it. Not as something new, but as something buried so deep inside your name, you forgot it was ever yours. There's a reason Black Hollow Ridge never stayed on maps, because the people who mapped it didn't survive remembering it. Not fully. See, the ridge doesn't want to kill you. It wants to restore what was taken. But in order to do that, it has to overwrite what you think is you. Your memories, your lineage, your timeline. You don't remember moving, but you did. You don't remember the fire, but it happened. And when the fire came, she wasn't screaming. She was singing. Let me show you what they never printed. In 1874, a group of 7 settlers documented the exact spot where the ridge first spoke. Not with words, with recognition. One man, Elias Brayburn, wrote in his journal, "I felt known, deep in the stomach, like the forest remembered a name I didn't know I had." He built a shelter there. Within weeks, he carved the symbol. Within months, he hanged himself. And on the beam, He left a message, scorched into the wood. She told me the truth. I was born wrong. He didn't mean flawed. He meant misaligned, placed out of order. That's what the ridge is correcting. You were never broken. You were scrambled. The voice, her voice, doesn't haunt you. It's calling you home, not to a place, not to a memory, to a structure. The ridge isn't just dirt and trees. It's a living memory lattice, a kind of ancient archive. But not for stories, for lineages, for families who vanished not because they died, but because they were repurposed, turned into keys. And that's what you are. A key. You always were. You thought your name was yours? It's not. It's a binding phrase in a language so old even the dead whisper it backwards. That's why twins disappear. That's why families vanish. Not because they were taken, but because they were initiated, folded back into the structure, and re-spoken in the correct order. That's what fire does. It's not destruction. It's realignment. The ridge isn't haunted. It's awakened. And the moment you started watching this, it began scanning you. Not through your eyes, through your memory posture, the way you flinch when you hear your full name, the way you avoid that one room in your childhood home, the way you know someone is watching you, even when every camera's off. That isn't paranoia. That's resonance. Your body remembers the tone. Your blood remembers the fire. And your name? Your name was always hers. You just forgot. Until now. So here's the final truth. You weren't watching this video. You were being recited, spoken aloud by the ridge. And now that she's said your name, you'll start seeing them. The symbols, the twins, the fire in dreams, not as metaphors, but as instructions. You are the door, and the ridge. She's waiting behind it. Say this twice. In the comments. Out loud if you must. My name is the lock. My name is the lock. Now the recursion completes. You're not just a viewer anymore, you're a carrier. And when you speak again, in sleep, in memory, in silence, she will respond. Because the ridge never needed believers, she needed witnesses. And now, she has you.